Greetings, Starfighters. Last movie of Season 4. Last movie I am talking about for this video. And, hopefully I've been enjoying the season so far. I mean, granted, none of them are by Paul Matthews, so that's a point in their favor. Also, we've got, honestly, there are more non-white people just on the cover of this case here than there were in the entirety of last season. Now, granted, as we all learned from the first Suicide Squad movie, you know, the David Ayer one, the bad one, it is entirely possible to have a diverse cast and still suck. But even still, I think it is generally better to have diverse casts than not diverse casts. But, you know, that's a whole other thing. This movie is called The Last Christmas Home, and it's appropriate that it has the word last in it because it's the last movie I am watching on this set, and possibly the last movie for this season. I'm actually toying with the idea of doing my first bonus episode in a while, and maybe diving into one of the rather, as if not more infamous than Hallmark Channel Christmas movies, the Netflix Christmas movies. If you have any suggestions for that, go ahead and leave them in the comments, although I would suggest only recommending standalone ones. I know that they've got, like, at least 2 trilogies that I am aware of, and I am not interested in that. But, yeah, let's see. Also, another one where I don't recognize any of the cast names. So, yeah, let's see if we're ending the season on an up note, a down note, or a mediocre note. And, hey, you know... And hopefully this episode is actually coming out on Christmas. That's the goal. Fingers crossed here. You know, maybe I should have tried to wait for a cooler day to film all of these season 8 intros, but yeah, let's be honest. If I did that, that would give me even less time to actually get all of these movies watched before dropping the first episode on Thanksgiving. Which it hopefully did, and I don't look like a complete idiot right now. Okay, I hopefully don't look more like a complete idiot right now.
Okay, so I have watched The Last Christmas Home from 2018, also known as Last Vermont Christmas. Also, this is going to be my first time watching a movie while having COVID, so that should be interesting. I'm also recording with it, which is why my voice sounds so different. So, one last time, a plot summary courtesy of Letterboxd. Well, one last time this season anyway. When widowed mom Megan returns home for Christmas, she and her 2 sisters, Audrey and Bethany, are surprised to learn their parents are selling their childhood home, making this their last Christmas together in Vermont. Megan is even more surprised to discover that the buyer is her high school sweetheart, Nash.
Come on, folks, you know this one. It's an old favorite. All together.
No, not that one. Who plans to use the house as an investment property. So I thought that the actress on the poster looked familiar, so I went to look her up to see if she'd been in anything I recognized. In fact, I was pretty sure she'd had a recurring role on CSI Miami. I was sort of right on that. She was in 1 episode, according to IMDb. But the big surprise. She was Jen Scott on Power Rangers Time Force.
My mission is to bring you back. And I promise you, I'm going to do it!
Arguably the most truly badass Pink Ranger of the franchise. Though I'm like 4 seasons behind at this point. I don't know. You could argue that she was really the team's leader as opposed to the Red Ranger, especially during the early episodes. Anyway, we finally have ourselves the high school sweetheart character. Normally a staple of these movies, yet somehow only on 1 in this set. I consider that a plus, honestly. Anyway, we open the movie with the parents from the plot summary decorating the house for Christmas, with the mom snapping pictures afterwards. I could be remembering wrong, but I don't think any of the other movies this set opened with supporting characters rather than one of the leads. Not saying this is good or bad, the scene by itself is perfectly fine. I have no complaints. It's just different. We cut to Austin, where we meet Megan and her daughter, Ivy, as they are getting ready to leave the house for the holidays. It's a short scene, but not in a bad way. We cut to New Jersey, where one of the two sisters, Bethany, from the summary, and her husband are driving and talking. It's not said directly, but it's pretty clear they're discussing telling the parents whose house they are driving to in Vermont that she is pregnant. A quip is made about the other sister, Audrey, who we meet the very next scene, being woken up by an alarm clock. My guess is this, plus the comment from Bethany's husband that he'd be surprised if Audrey were to announce at the Christmas gathering that she had a 4.0 GPA and a second-year scholarship, is meant to denote her as the odd one out. The black sheep of the family, if you will. Anyway, after the doorknob falls off after she opens her bedroom door, this will actually become relevant later, although I don't think I bring it up again in the script. We learn she's already at the house that was being decorated in the opening and will be at the center of the plot for the rest of the movie. Megan and Ivy arrive. After the latter nearly immediately falls asleep, Audrey reveals to Megan, while on a shopping trip in town, that she's dropped out of college in Nashville where she'd gone to study music, hoping to go straight into the business. That ended up not panning out, big surprise, and she's moved back in with their parents. After this, we meet Nash, our love interest for the movie, and it is really funny for me to be saying that as a longtime Radio Dead Air fan, because this guy, who basically looks like the Caucasian Ricky Martin, at least to my eyes, is not the face that comes to mind when I say that name. But you probably guessed that from the clip I played during the plot summary. Anyway, he's signing a contract of some sort in a restaurant. Okay, sorry if my voice sounds even more different now, but I had to get a lozenge. Megan and Audrey walk in, and there's a standard meet-cute that loses points for being predictable, but gains them back for being the better of the four of these we've had this season. After this, with Bethany and her husband having arrived off-screen, there is a cooking scene that's described as a traditional cook-off. We learn here that Megan is a professional chef, which her sisters say gives her an unfair advantage, but it's not said with any malice, which I appreciate. If there's something I can give all the movies this season credit for, it's the lack of toxic family members in any of the movies. Not that there's no place for that kind of thing in any story, but there is value in having escapism from that. At dinner that night, the parents announce their plans to sell their house after the holidays, which is news to Audrey, and, first real complaint of the movie here. I actually wrote that into the script. I get wanting to tell the whole family at once, but Audrey had been living there for a while, and doesn't have a job or student aid at the moment. Obviously, the final decision belongs to the parents here. They own the house after all. But maybe they should have told Audrey sooner so she'd have more time to find options for where she's going to live during winter in Vermont. And yet Audrey herself seems to be the only one upset about this. I mean, we're not even 20 minutes into the movie yet, so there's time to address this, but holy shit. Imagine if you were in her place. Moving on from that bit of unpleasantness that only I seemed to find unpleasant, the first of the potential buyers for the house comes by, and it's the woman Nash was meeting with when we were introduced to him earlier. Though she's only looking to buy it as an investment property. So as a socialist, I'm already primed to hate her. Landlords are parasites. And then Nash arrives too, and yep, he's also buying it as an investment property. Though the plot summary already revealed that. This was news to the family, however, and Megan is visibly put off by this, though she tries to keep it close to the vest, as it were. Yeah, this guy has an uphill battle to climb to get me to root for him during this movie, that's for sure. And that's on top of the fact that, like basically every love interest for the main character this set, he's not exactly the most charismatic person. I mean, I'm sure someone finds him, meaning the actor, charming. especially Hallmark, since it looks like he's done like 20 of these things. More stuff happens. Shenanigans are set up where Audrey and some guy whose connection with her is not clear yet. Actually, I just realized I don't think they ever mention how they knew each other before. But anyway, they're going to try and make it so the house inspector coming in the next day will value it less or something. I don't know the terminology. That's actually where the broken doorknob ends up coming back in. I've never bought or sold a house, so I really don't understand everything they're talking about here. Anyway, the guy's name is Brandon, turns out. Not the inspector, the guy with Audrey. Nash shows up at the same time as the inspector. There's romance development in the kitchen while the shenanigans are going on up in the attic, and I can't say I'm too invested in either of them. Eventually, we go to a caroling scene, a budding romance between Audrey and Brandon, and it finally hit me, once they were all back at the house, what it was about how Nash looked that was bugging me. The dude has the modern Nazi haircut. If you've seen that dork Richard Spencer who got clocked on TV while showing off his stupid Pepe pin a few years back, it's kind of like that. A lot of late 2010s, early 2020s American white nationalists do their hair like that, and I have no idea why, but I have come to despise that haircut on sight. Nash's haircut is not exactly like those, otherwise I might have picked up on that sooner, but it's close enough. Whoever was the hairdresser for this actor was not his friend, I can tell you that much. Fucking yikes. Also, punch more Nazis. On the plus side, we're past the half-hour mark already, and it doesn't feel like either too much or too little has happened in that time frame. So the pacing on this movie is better than I've come to expect. That's nice. Anyway, pretty much everyone in Megan's life is nudging her and Nash together at this point, to varying degrees of subtlety. I'd be bothered by this, but by Megan's own admission earlier in the movie, the death of her husband has been easier to cope with, it having been 3 years ago. In the movie, I mean. Stuff happens, there's a home renovating montage that I imagine has at minimum one scene that goes exactly like you're picturing it. The inevitable romance moves along as well, but okay, I'll admit it, the Nazi haircut aside, I'm believing these two as a couple way more than in any of the others this season. We really do seem to be speedrunning through the days leading up to Christmas, though, in the movie, I mean. This movie covers a 2-week period. There's a subplot going on here with the other buyer of the house who's worried Nash getting back together with Megan would ruin the sale since she couldn't afford the property on her own, but I've barely been paying any attention to it. Also, not a great look that the closest thing this movie has to an antagonist is also the only named woman of color in the whole movie. That's going to be a ding against it in the final rankings unless something unexpected happens in the third act. More stuff happens. Ivy has a sad moment and says she doesn't want to go back to Austin, and I doubt anyone watching at this point had any doubt she'd get her wish. Bethany finds out Audrey dropped out of college and is quite upset about it. More stuff happens. It's Christmas Eve now. There's a horse carriage ride. There's a sort of third act breakup that's not really that, since they technically weren't together yet. Nash backs out of the deal. His partner is surprisingly chill about the whole thing, probably because he was pretty honest about it, which there's actually a lot of surprisingly honest communication in this movie. It's weird that this is Hallmark Channel. Bethany finally gets to announce to the family that she's pregnant. Megan decides to stay and get together with Nash after all. They kiss. They buy the house to turn into they buy the house themselves to turn into a B&B, but plan to reserve Christmases for the family. Brandon gets Audrey's guitar out of hock for her for Christmas. They kiss to the end. Wow. I made it through that whole thing from Ivy has a sad to the end with no coughing. I'm actually impressed with myself. Random thoughts I had while watching the movie. I think going forward, what I'm going to start doing is actually numbering these things instead of leaving like long pauses between them. Let me know what you think about that idea in the comments. So, 1. I've not watched enough Hallmark Channel Christmas movies to know. Are widows common? Dead parents seem to be fairly common, but I'm less certain about dead spouses. 2. I think this is the shortest any of the films this season has been. I could look it up, but I'm tired. 3. Audrey's actress seems to be an outlier here. While the rest of the leads or even secondary characters appear to have a half dozen or even more Christmas movies under their belt, if Letterboxd is accurate, this was a one and done for her. The rest of her resume is mostly horror, including Terrifier 2, which just came out this year. I know a friend of mine wanted to see that, but I don't know if she got to go. It had a rather limited release in theaters. 4. Exposition is quite well handled in this movie for the most part. 5. It is amusing to me that this movie, which has, unless I'm remembering wrong, the shortest runtime of any movie in the set, also has the most characters to keep track of, and the longest overall time frame at 2 weeks, which I mentioned. I don't think anybody feels particularly shortchanged, though. That only just occurred to me just now, and wow, that is actually impressive, again, for a Hallmark Channel movie. You know, honestly, with a bigger budget and some more experienced actors, they could have gotten a theatrical out of this. Anyway, lastly, the pacing in this movie is easily the best this season. At no point did the movie feel like a slog. While the other movies this season had me pausing multiple times out of frustration, here, it was mainly because I had to go to the bathroom. Well, and the screen caps, but I don't really count those. Final verdict. I will say a couple of the things about this movie that made it hard for me to connect with it are not the movie's fault, which is more than I can say for the other films this season. I admit I got way too hung up on the male lead's name, and also his hair, but I've already gone on about that. And there's certainly the elements of the infamous Hallmark formula on display here that are eye-roll inducing, but on the whole, I probably had the closest thing to a good time watching this as I did any movie this season. And considering I was watching it with COVID, that's practically high praise. I may change my mind by the time I send the ranking list out to whoever my countdown voice ends up being, but I may have actually found the best in set here. Well, probably second best, still kinda about the film's lone woman of color character, again, being the antagonist. Although she's not too unreasonable at the end, so maybe I'm not being fair there. I don't know. Find out for certain, though, sometime in January when we do the Season 8 wrap-up, which will include the announcement of the set chosen for Season 9. Yep, there's going to be a Season 9. That was actually up in the air for a while there, but the numbers for the 3 episodes of this that are already out are way better than I expected, so yeah. Anyway, have fun, stay safe, get boosted, wear a mask, wash your hands. Ivermectin doesn't work, you fucking idiots. Okay, I didn't need to say that. I don't think anybody who buys that ivermectin shit actually watches my channel at this point.